Marriage Conversations, episode 5, and I'm calling this Marriage May Trigger You. Be sure to go back and watch episodes 1 through 4 when I talk about various things of marriage conversations. But this episode, we're talking about how marriage may trigger you. Let me tell you, marriage is a pressure cooker. People think marriage is two wonderful people coming together in love. Marriage is two unhealed people with past trauma and experiences coming together. That's another thing that marriage is. When you single, you can run from trauma, past experiences, triggers, everything else. But when you married, you can run, but you can't hide. When you're dating, it's easy to run from people, events, anything that triggers you, because you can see it and go, oh, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. But in marriage, you can't do that. Where are you going to run to? The other room? You can't do it. And if you're a person who has trauma and triggers and all you're doing is running, you're going to be running your whole life until you sit down and you face it. And that's what marriage makes you do. Marriage basically traps you in the room and it makes you face all those triggers and trauma that you have that you are bringing into the marriage. And people think it's only the other person bringing in trauma. No, you got some too. Everybody is bringing trauma and bad experiences into a relationship. Everyone is. You know, when you're out in the dating world and you get triggered by somebody, you can have all sorts of coping mechanisms that you use to sort of get past the situation. You can deflect, you can move away, you can walk away, you can end the conversation. But when you're in marriage, some of those coping mechanisms that you had, they don't work. They don't work in marriage because marriage is a whole different entity. It's almost like those coping mechanisms you had when you was dating. It was like duct tape was just put on your little problem or trauma. But then when you get married, that duct tape does not hold up. It's like that donut tire you put on your car when you had a flat tire. That donut tire was meant to just to get you to the nearest tire shop to change and get a new tire. It wasn't meant to be riding around on for a whole year on. And that's just how some of these trauma and triggers people have. They don't put duct tape on it. But you know what? It ain't going to sustain marriage. You're going to have to tackle that situation. And another thing, you cannot rely upon your partner to always tiptoe around your triggers. That's the new thing. People want to just talk about, oh, well, that's my trigger. That's my trigger. Well, shoot, fix it. Because I can't be tiptoeing around all your triggers. Because when you're in marriage, the wife has trigger and so does the man has trigger. You can't always count on your spouse to just tiptoe around every trigger you have. You're going to have to fix some of them. A lot of people think they can prepare for all their triggers in dating. No, you can't. There is no way you can plan for every scenario while you're dating or while you're out here alone. Most triggers don't even get exposed until you're in the pressure cooker of marriage. Some people don't even know they had triggers until they was in marriage. What's the saying go? Why is it the people you love and who love you hurt you the most? That's because they're bringing up triggers. You know, once you're triggered, it's easy to blame your partner for making you feel a certain kind of way. Because you know what? Most of the time when you trigger, it's a horrible feeling, whatever it is, whatever trigger it is, whether it's hurt, whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, no matter what it is, whatever emotion it brings up into you, all you know is you don't like it and you don't want to feel this way. So the first thing you want to do is you want to tell a partner, oh, you making me feel a certain way. You need to change the way you making me feel. Unfortunately, that's not foolproof. Yeah, your spouse or whatever, they love you. They should want to have an invested interest and not hurting you and actually trying to keep you safe from some of those things. But the truth of the matter is not foolproof. You're going to have to learn to do some things yourself in marriage. And it will take time. Some people are bringing triggers and trauma into marriages that they've had for 20, 30 years. So for you to think all of a sudden you're going to meet somebody and they all of a sudden going to know how to work with your trauma and triggers is unrealistic. And for you to think that you're going to sort it out real fast and real soon, that's also unrealistic. Some people's game plan out here for dating is just to find someone who doesn't trigger them. That ain't a good game plan. It really isn't. Now, do you want someone who triggers you all the time? Absolutely not. But if you're looking for someone who is never going to trigger you or never make you feel a certain kind of way, then you're going to be out here looking for a long time. For you to come in a relationship expecting your partner never to trigger you in an area that is emotionally upsetting to you is really unrealistic. And if that's what it takes in order for you to find a mate to get married, then you know what? You better stay single because that person doesn't exist. And if there's a married person out here telling single people that they've never been triggered by their spouse, then they're lying. Every married person has been triggered by their spouse because if they weren't triggered, they wouldn't be having no arguments. And we know married people fight and have arguments, but they have figured out a way to work past it. They figured out a way to work past that. So when you see people been married for 10, 15, 20 years, this is after 10, 15, 20 years of working on these issues. You can't expect to come into a marriage or even before marriage, before you've even been married, to have the ability to work together like a married couple has been for 10 or 15 years. Don't be basing getting married on looking at a couple that's been married for 20 years and saying because you don't have that, you can't get married. That's unrealistic. When you see a couple been married for a long time, they've done a lot of work. So unless you're willing to do the work with your own traumas and your own triggers, then you don't need to get married. Talk to you later. Bye.